facets of fluidity and sexuality. So thank you for letting me join us.
We love it. And so Bonnie, we'll start with you with the first question.
Oh,
we'll just come down the line.
Pressure's on. Okay, let's go. I'm ready.
And if you need me to repeat the question, just let me know.
Okay.
How do you think movies and books about space can help us understand and appreciate the diversity of people's identities, including their gender and who they're attracted to, especially when these identities are fluid and may change over time?
I have a feeling most everyone in this panel is going to be thinking the same thing. When it comes to science fiction, it's unlimited on what you can create when it comes to alien species, different types of evolving of even the human species, to where I feel like when you look at a utopian future of, Star Trek is also a perfect example of Starfleet coming together, different species living together in harmony, working together, different types of gender, different types of sexuality being represented. I feel like sci-fi, you have no limit with that. And you can also get away with different types of representation whilst, I hate to say forcing it down, because it shouldn't be like, we shouldn't be feeling like it's being forced, but sadly, some people in society can't accept different types of sexuality and different types of gender representation. So when you put it in a sci-fi setting, you can say what you need to say and show what you need to show, and let it be mainstream in a way that'll let people who might not be able to fully understand the different types of sexuality and equality that we're trying to represent. You can put it in a way that they're like, oh, I get this. This is an alien species, but in retrospect, it's all human. It's all part of us. Sci-fi comes from our storytelling and comes from us. I don't even remember what the question was.
Experiential.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of understanding who I am sexually and what I'm attracted to and who I am as a person came from the love of fantasy and sci-fi, because it was limitless. And I was like, here's a species that has no gender. Here's a species that, loves any and all types. And I was like, I understand this. And it put it into words, into a way I could understand, and also be able to maybe talk to my father about it, who's not quite as understanding in that world that the normal person is. So it can bond other people in a way that we can find common ground in when you use sci-fi and fantasy to escape. It shows people what you're trying to say. Words are coming out. It's not quite what I'm in my head.
No.
I think I need a coffee.
Right, fiction can do that. It has the diagrams sometimes that we can use to explain ourselves. Stories, they're great points of conversation. I think science fiction, fantasy, stories outside of our current reality allow us to kind of circumvent our usual structural boundaries inside thoughts and pathways to really just free our minds. And then there's this realm, right, outside of where we usually step that allows us to reflect on the other in a different way. So we can create different others, and again, it's like, is it a human experience? The interesting thing is trying in some way to create something that nobody's ever seen will I can say probably will bring someone around to something they've never heard of that already exists. It's an amazing exploration of the imagination. There are authors who, will try to describe something totally other, totally alien, and then that person actually exists and needs to meet this author. I feel like I've experienced that myself with cultures or peoples where I write something different to me, or I choose to write something that disagrees with me in order to understand it better and to encounter it in an empathic way, because fiction helps us with empathy. We map ourselves onto
Yeah, all of that I totally agree with. I do want to take it kind of to a more subconscious level of why I really enjoy sci-fi and how it impacts us, discovering ourselves and who we like and who we're attracted to. Because the special thing about sci-fi and everything like that is it's always set in this future time. This time that we're building up to and this time that we're waiting for. And what's really, really special about being alive in this moment and in this time right now is we're now reaching that expected future, that hopeful future that inspired us to really grow into ourselves and be where we are now. Now that we're at that time where we're really, exploring and researching things like warp drive and all this other stuff. To finally be a part of the future that we've all looked up to, I think on a subconscious level, sci-fi really helps us almost build that itself, it builds itself in a way. And that's really what intrigues me about sci-fi and what's always allowed sci-fi to help me explore myself and things of that nature. Really as a collective, it seems like the genre that's the most healing because it builds not only just a believable future, but it helps us understand that future is achievable. And that is just, that's kind of how I feel about it.
What I find fascinating about sci-fi and fantasy, it's like if you have a story about humans on Earth and you have some kind of LGBTQ plus characters, people are like, oh, they're very upset. But if you have a bisexual alien or a trans ghost or if it's some kind of which I need to read that story.
Yeah, wait a minute, where was this book?
Right, just or a asexual mermaid. All of a sudden, there's still gonna be people that are but for whatever reason, it makes it easier for maybe somebody who would be if it's just a story about humans on Earth, they wouldn't read it. But since it's an alien, a mermaid, a ghost, a vampire, then it's oh, okay, and it seems to make it easier for people to kind of accept. So humans are fun.
Yeah, I love everything that's been said already. Can you reiterate the question again?
How do you think movies or books about space can help us understand and appreciate the diversity of people's identities, including their gender and who they're attracted to, especially when these identities are fluid or may change over time?
That last part is interesting, especially when the identities are fluid or may change over time. I don't know the genre as well as you guys do, but I think that I mentioned this in another panel, the idea that one's identity doesn't have to be fixed and it can morph over time. I'm sure you can think of examples of that in Star Trek, of people's identities changing. That exists, right? That's a thing. So, I haven't even thought about that, but I think, being pansexual and being bipolar, having my mood change a lot, being non-binary, gender fluid, having my sense of my gender change a lot. The idea of characters that are not static, the way you would see them more in a sitcom, where it's sort of a network sitcom has a character who's reliable and sort of acts the same way, and they grow over the course of the show. But the idea of there being more space for transformation in a genre like sci-fi is very appealing. But yeah, I think that the cool thing about sci-fi is it has that escapist quality, but it also gives us something to work towards and getting to sort of also get that respite from the craziness of our modern day life and all the oppression we feel, and go into a world where there is a little bit more freedom, there's a little more hope, possibility. So yeah, it's great.
So
Jumping off that, because I'm probably gonna have to leave the panel early, but jumping off that real fast, I love how it also introduces it to younger generations, like kids that are watching sci-fi and coming into their own. And one of the things I love about Star Trek Prodigy is that the character of Zero is a Medusan and is non-corporeal and doesn't, it even says, I am not a he, I am not a her, I am non-corporeal. And introducing that in a kid's show to where the kids just, all the other characters and the children watching just immediately understand it and go, oh, okay, and that's all it is. And so now, they can now learn about people on different, gender spectrums, and meeting someone who's non-binary, they can immediately go, it's like zero. They're not a he, they are not a her, they are just who they are. And I love that sci-fi today, and of course in the past too, but it's like sci-fi today that's really trying to push the boundaries is now being introduced to younger generations and children and people that are in such a development part of their lives, learning who they are, what they're attracted to, trying to find themselves, and they can connect that, because culturally, sadly, there are places that they do not get. I'm from Louisiana, like it's on the bayou, there's not a lot of that. And so knowing that my 3-year-old nephew can watch sci-fi and learn about himself and become who he wants to be, or whatever gender he's going to identify as, makes me so happy that sci-fi could be such a gateway for that. And it will be, because I'm his aunt and he has no choice. And I'll be like, you are watching all of this and dressing up as Spock.
And I love that all of y'all bring that forward, that there are 3 very key things in that. The first, it's a form of escapism.
Yeah.
It gives us something that for a lot of us we could not have imagined on Earth currently, but it's something we can work towards. Second, it is a gateway for people to understand their bodies, who they are, their life, and understand that it isn't static. It's something that can transform, and that transformative nature of that is powerful. But also, finally, I heard y'all say it's healing. It's something that gives us rest to see that, well, right now on Earth, this might be what I'm going through. One day, if we keep working hard enough, this can change, not just for myself, but the communities around me. And so I wanted to build off of that. And, yeah.
I just bringing up the character, like, changes over time. There's a character that I worked on in one storyline, and it's kind of they're a recurring side character, and the changes happen pretty subtly. They leave their previous context, and then they ask to use a different name, and the pronoun